I would want to turn on to what we were talking about, and we've been talking about people who are facing housing security in general, and particularly in the winter months. We've been putting out extreme cold alerts. We're getting temperatures at night now that are sub 30. I think today is supposed to drip down to somewhere around 23 or 24. So the cold weather is definitely back, and we're well below our average high temperatures. This week, we have been under an extreme cold alert warning. When weather gets this cold, we're most concerned about those staying outside without shelter. During an extreme cold alert, shelters remain open so individuals can get inside and out of the cold. And outreach workers urge those who have indoors access to please come into our shelters. It's really not safe for people to be staying out during these cold alerts. It's not really safe or good for you in any conditions, but particularly during these periods of extreme cold. It's extremely dangerous for people, and we really want to help people come inside. The homeless information line is 240-907-2688. That number is open at all hours and every day of the week. We want people to know and use this number. We'll put it in the chat for you to share. If you see someone you're concerned about, call the line. An outreach person will follow up, try to find the person, and urge them to go indoors. Just to kind of presage something I know concerns people, there are oftentimes people are reported as being outdoors. We will follow up. People don't always decide to go indoors, and the county does not have the legal authority to compel a person to go indoors. So sometimes if you report an incident and the person remains outside, it's probably not because the county didn't try to get them to come indoors, but because after efforts to come indoors, that person still decided to stay outside. It's dangerous, it's unhealthy, it has serious health consequences, but this is not a space the county is allowed to mandate a person into a shelter any more than they're allowed to mandate them into a jail. So it's a problem. Anything you can do if you encounter somebody like this, I'd start by saying, please speak kindly to them and please talk about, there are things in the county that you can do to help, and encourage people to take advantage of the things the county does to help. Any kind words can help get a person's attention and hopefully get them to accept the assistance that we're trying to provide them. Every January, we participate in a region-wide count of people experiencing homelessness. In 2024, we counted more than 1,100 people. It's an increase of 28% over 2023. If you go back to 2020, the homeless population is up 71% in Montgomery County. Family homelessness is 47% higher in 24 than it was in 23. Meanwhile, evictions have increased for the past 2 fiscal years, and there are more than 130 households on a waiting list for rental assistance. And the only reason that evictions aren't more pronounced than they are right now is the courts don't have adequate staffing to process all of the eviction papers that have been submitted. So what we're only seeing is a tip of the iceberg of the people who could be evicted if the courts had the capacity to handle all the eviction requests. This kind of focuses a little bit of our attention on the lack of affordable housing. Many of these people simply cannot continue to pay rising rents. As I think rent properties built in the last 23 years have no rent controls on them, and properties built before that have 6% rent limits, but 6% rent limits are often higher than, they are definitely higher than inflation. They're almost twice inflation this year, and wages in the lower income sector rarely go up more than inflation. So this is just compounding a problem for already low income families in the community. The short-term housing and resolution program would provide up to 12 months of rental assistance and navigation services for families to get them into permanent housing immediately, rather than relying so heavily on motels for temporary housing. And this is both costly and disruptive to families trying to recover from the housing crisis. So we're going to be working to shift people out of the hotels into permanent housing, as well as housing first-time families or people who are coming back to the system in this program rather than in the hotels. We can basically house about twice as many people as we were housing under the hotel system. I've asked Christine Hong to join us today. She's the county's chief of services to end and prevent homelessness. And we also invited Susie Sinclair Smith, the CEO of Montgomery County Coalition for the Homeless, to join us. Christine and Susie, can you tell us more about, our plan with the coldest months that are still ahead of us, and maybe a little bit about what you're doing in general?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. County Executive. So during these 5 coldest months of the year, hypothermia season is when it is clear that having shelter and housing are life-saving, which is why housing is such an important social determinant of health. And I'm so appreciative to our outreach partners and our emergency shelter providers because they do life-saving work. Our outreach providers, of which we have 4, they canvass our streets, the entire county on a regular basis, proactively encouraging individuals who are staying outside to come into shelter, especially during these coldest months of the year. In addition to that, our emergency shelter providers for individuals expand their shelter to provide more than 200 additional beds during this season so that we can expand to ensure everyone who needs shelter can come indoors. For families, we use motels for overflow sheltering. And as the county executive mentioned, our hope is to reopen the short-term housing and resolution program, the SHARP program, so that instead of relying so heavily on motels, that we can place families directly into housing. It is far less disruptive and traumatic to them, and it is more cost effective. So that's our goal there. And I wanted to welcome Susie Sinclair Smith also. She is one of our valued shelter partners. She's the CEO of the Montgomery County Coalition for the Homeless. And I'll pass it to her to talk a little bit more about hypothermia shelter in our county.
Sure. Thank you, Christine, and thank you, County Executive Elrich and Dr. Bridgers, for all your support. As we've discussed, as the weather gets colder, people who are living outside for a range of reasons come to the emergency shelter, and we fill up quickly at this time of year. I'm the CEO of Montgomery County Coalition for the Homeless. We've been for over 30 years operating the primary men's emergency shelter in Montgomery County. We also have about 600 households in permanent supportive housing who've ended their homelessness. We have a supply of housing, about 120 units for those who are the most vulnerable. So we see the full spectrum. And I want to first applaud County Executive Elrich for the heart and wisdom that he has brought to this issue. And he has worked diligently to expand the capacity of the primary men's shelter from 60 to 200 beds. And we, as Christine said, expand beyond 200 to 216 beds. The purpose, and I think it's important for the public to know about this, we view the purpose of an emergency shelters to help meet the urgent needs of people who are experiencing homelessness, but then move them on quickly to rehousing or home of their own. We do not believe in warehousing people. We believe in giving them the resources they need to end their experiences of homelessness. For the very first time, and I do want to applaud the county executive, Dr. Bridgers at HHS, and Christine, we have a very rich array of resources and supports for the men in our emergency shelter. And for the very first time, we're able to extend these supports to individuals who come to us during the overflow season. Before, we provided supports just for their immediate needs, showers, meals, laundry facilities, and a place to sleep. Now we're able to offer our full array of resources to them, which not only includes that, but also we have a benefits specialists that help people apply for benefits or renew benefits to help them afford housing. We also have housing locators who work with the men at our shelter to make sure they're eligible for housing assistance and to find housing and move them onto housing as quickly as possible. We also have on-site primary care services through the Kelly Collaborative, and also behavioral health services through Dr. Burrows And so we really have a rich array of services. And to build on what Mark was talking about in terms of being kind and encouraging people to come in, we really view it to be critical to our role to operate a low barrier shelter. So we have a welcome opening door. We practice trauma-informed care. Our case managers are skilled in meeting people where they are. We keep people's information confidentially. So if people are afraid of coming into the shelter, maybe because of their residency status or other reasons, that is all kept confidentially. So we, like the county, really view our role at this time of the year to save people's lives, but also it's an opportunity to connect with people who are unstably housed and help move them onto housing. We're very excited, and I'm going to end with this. We've been trying to create all sorts of creative opportunities to move the men who do seek shelter with us into permanent housing as quickly as possible. As Mark mentioned, housing is incredibly expensive in the county. We used to be able to find room rentals for $500 to $600 for our men. Now it's up to $1,400 a month. So we've created an apartment matching program where and it's a new app where we look for men who are interested in having roommates, and which makes housing more affordable. And so if there are any landlords out there who do have rooms to rent, we work diligently to make sure that they're matched well and it's a good placement. So I just again want to thank the incredible leadership of the Montgomery County government in addressing this problem very seriously and also creating solutions to end homelessness.